The desert wind carried the smell of fear and sweat through the metal bars of the prison cage. Lucy Martinez pressed her small body against the cold wall, trying to make herself invisible. Her left arm hung useless at her side, broken 3 weeks ago when Guard Captain Zexram had thrown her against the wall for dropping a water bowl. The wound on her leg had never healed properly, leaving a constant ache that made walking difficult. Around her, 20 other humans sat in similar positions. Men, women, and children all crowded together in a space meant for half their number. Dr. Kane Roberts sat nearby, his medical supplies long since confiscated by their captors. He had done what he could for Lucy's injuries using torn fabric and hope, but without proper medicine. Healing was slow and painful. The Zethkari guards stood outside their cage, their reptilian faces twisted in expressions of disgust and amusement. They were tall creatures, nearly 8 feet in height, with scales that shifted from green to brown depending on their mood. Their eyes were cold, yellow, and showed no mercy for the humans they had captured during the raid on Colony 7, Commander. Vextal approached the cage, his elaborate armor marking him as the leader of this mining operation. His scales were darker than the others, and several scars crossed his face from battles long past. He carried himself with the arrogance of someone who had never faced a real challenge. "Listen well, primitive creatures," Vextal said, his voice carrying the mechanical translation that made his words understandable to human ears. "Your presence here has awakened something that should have remained sleeping. The great crimson worm has stirred from its rest, and it demands tribute." Dr. Roberts stood up slowly, his legs stiff from weeks of confinement. "We've done nothing to disturb anything. We're just prisoners trying to survive." Vextal's laugh was like grinding metal. "Survive? You speak as if your survival matters. Your species is nothing but a minor inconvenience in this galaxy, weak, short-lived, and utterly without value." The other guards joined in the laughter, their voices creating a harsh chorus that echoed off the canyon walls. Lucy pulled her knees closer to her chest, trying to block out the sound. She had heard these words so many times that they had become like background noise, but they still hurt. "The crimson worm has not emerged from its deep caverns in over 2 centuries, Vextal continued. "Your mining noise, your pathetic crying, something has disturbed its ancient slumber. Now it circles the upper levels of the canyon, and our operations cannot continue until it is appeased." Elder Korth, the camp's chief scientist, stepped forward. His scales were lighter than the others, marked with the blue patterns that indicated his advanced age and wisdom. "Commander, perhaps we should consider other options. The ancient texts speak of the worm's intelligence. Maybe we could communicate with it, find out what it truly wants." Vextal's eyes flashed with anger. "The texts are stories for children, old fool. The worm is a beast, nothing more. It wants food, and we shall give it food." His gaze swept over the human prisoners, lingering on each face with calculating cruelty. "The question is which of these worthless creatures will serve as our offering." Lucy felt ice form in her stomach. She had seen that look before, the way predators looked at prey. Around her, the other humans pressed closer together as if their combined presence could protect them from what was coming. "Choose the strongest," suggested one of the guards. "The worm will be more satisfied with a substantial meal." "No," Vextal said, his voice carrying a tone of cruel amusement. "The strongest might actually pose some small threat to the beast. We want the worm to be pleased with our offering, not annoyed by it." His eyes settled on Lucy, and she felt her heart stop. This one, the broken child. She can barely stand, poses no threat, and will make the perfect sacrifice. Dr. Roberts stepped in front of Lucy, his arms spread wide. "No, she's just a child. She's injured and afraid. Take me instead." The commander's laughter filled the air again. "How touching. The older creature wishes to protect the younger. But you misunderstand, human. This is not a negotiation. This is a demonstration of your species' proper place in the order of things." 2 guards entered the cage, their weapons ready. Dr. Roberts tried to fight them, but weeks of poor food and confinement had weakened him. They pushed him aside easily, and he fell hard against the cage wall, The other prisoners wanted to help, but they were too weak and outnumbered. Lucy tried to run, but her injured leg gave out after just a few steps. The guards grabbed her easily, their scaled hands rough against her skin. She cried out as they lifted her, the movement sending waves of pain through her broken arm. "Please," she whispered, her voice small and frightened. "I don't want to die." Vextel bent down to look at her, his yellow eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Your wants are irrelevant, little creature. You exist only to serve a purpose, and today, that purpose is to feed a dragon." The guards carried Lucy out of the cage and toward the canyon's edge. Behind them, the other prisoners pressed against the bars, calling out protests and pleas that fell on deaf ears. Dr. Roberts shouted medical terms about her injuries, hoping to convince the aliens that she was too damaged to be useful even as food. The path to the dragon's lair wound down through red rock formations that looked like twisted fingers reaching toward the sky. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, making the metal shackles around Lucy's wrists burn against her skin. She had stopped struggling, knowing it would only make her injuries worse. The ancient altar remains from the time of the first colony. Vextel explained to his guards as they walked, as if he were giving a tour rather than leading a child to her death. The early settlers used it to appease the worm until they developed better weapons and drove it deeper into the canyon. Today we return to the old ways. The altar was a flat piece of black stone, worn smooth by centuries of wind and use. Dark stains marked its surface, and Lucy tried not to think about what had caused them. The guards chained her to metal rings, embedded in the stone, positioning her so she could not escape, but could still see the cave entrance where the dragon was said to live. As the aliens stepped back to a safe distance, Lucy felt more alone than she had ever felt in her life. Her broken arm throbbed, her leg ached, and her throat was dry from thirst. But worse than the physical pain was the knowledge that she had been thrown away like garbage, considered so worthless that her death was nothing more than entertainment. The Zethkari soldiers positioned themselves on a rocky outcrop 50 yards away, their recording devices ready to capture the moment for their amusement. Vextel settled back against a comfortable rock, his expression one of satisfied anticipation. "Now we wait," he said. "The worm will smell the offering and come to claim it. By sunset, this inconvenience will be resolved and we can return to our important work." Lucy closed her eyes and tried to remember better times. She thought of her parents, lost in the colony raid. She thought of her teacher, Mrs. Hamilton, who had always said that humans were special because they could choose to be kind even when the world was cruel. She thought of her dog, Buddy, who had protected her until the very end. Deep in the canyon, something stirred. The sound was like grinding stone mixed with the whisper of massive wings. Lucy opened her eyes and saw a shadow moving in the cave entrance, growing larger with each passing moment. The crimson worm was coming, and there was nowhere left to run. The crimson worm emerged from the cave like a living mountain. Its scales caught the desert sunlight, shifting from deep red to bright orange as it moved. The creature was enormous, easily 100 feet long, with wings that could have covered the entire alien camp. Its head was the size of a small building, and its eyes glowed like molten gold. Lucy had never seen anything so beautiful or so terrifying in her life. The dragon moved with surprising grace for something so massive, its claws clicking against the stone as it approached the altar. Each step sent small tremors through the ground, and Lucy felt the vibrations in her bones from their safe position. On the rocky outcrop, the Zethkari soldiers watched with excitement. Commander Vextel held up his recording device, wanting to capture every moment of what he expected to be a quick and violent end to the human child. "Look at the size of that beast," whispered one of the guards. "The human will not even make a proper meal for something so large." "It matters not," Vextel replied, his voice filled with satisfaction. "The worm will be pleased with our offering, and we can return to our work. The human serves her purpose at last." But as the dragon drew closer to Lucy, something unexpected happened. The great creature stopped moving and tilted its massive head to one side, as if listening to something the others could not hear. Its golden eyes focused on the small girl chained to the altar. And for several long moments, neither moved. Lucy found herself looking directly into those ancient eyes, and she felt something she had not expected. Instead of hunger or anger, she saw curiosity. The dragon was studying her, not like a predator looking at prey, but like a scholar examining something interesting and new. "Why has it stopped?" asked Elder Korth, his voice carrying confusion and growing concern. "The beast should have taken the offering by now." The dragon lowered its great head until it was level with Lucy's face. She could feel its breath, warm and surprisingly sweet, like the smell of flowers in summer. The creature's nostrils flared as it sniffed her gently, and then something truly remarkable happened. The dragon began to purr. The sound was deep and rumbling, like distant thunder mixed with the contented sound a cat makes when it is happy. The vibrations traveled through the stone altar and into Lucy's body, and she felt some of her pain beginning to fade. The constant ache in her broken arm lessened, and the throbbing in her injured leg became bearable. "This is not right," Vextel said, his voice rising with alarm. "The worm should have devoured the sacrifice. Why is it making that sound?" The dragon's massive claw moved toward Lucy, and she closed her eyes, expecting the end. But instead of sharp talons, she felt something warm and gentle touch her face. When she opened her eyes, she saw that the dragon was carefully wiping away her tears with the very tip of its claw. Then, with surgical precision, the dragon began to break her chains. Each metal link snapped cleanly, falling away without causing her any harm. The dragon's control was perfect, its massive strength applied with the delicacy of a surgeon's touch. "Stop it!" Vextel shouted, jumping to his feet. "The offering must remain in place. Shoot the beast if necessary." But before any of the guards could raise their weapons, the dragon settled its massive body in a circle around Lucy, creating a living wall of scales and muscle. The creature's wings spread wide, casting cool shadows over the altar and blocking the view from the Zethkari soldiers. Lucy found herself in a private space, surrounded by the dragon's warmth and protection. The creature's golden eyes looked down at her with what she could only describe as kindness. When it spoke, the voice came not through her ears but directly into her mind. "Small one," the dragon said, its mental voice gentle and ancient. "You have been hurt by the cold ones. Their cruelty runs deep, but it need not touch you any more." Lucy's eyes widened in amazement. "You can talk? You can talk? "I can do many things, little daughter of Earth. I have been waiting. For your kind to reach the stars, I have been waiting for you." The dragon's healing warmth continued to flow through Lucy's body. She felt her broken arm knitting back together, the bones aligning properly for the first time in weeks. The infected wound on her leg began to close and heal, leaving only smooth skin behind. "I don't understand," Lucy said, her voice filled with wonder. "The aliens said you were just a beast. They said you would eat me." The dragon's laugh was like warm music in her mind. "The cold ones understand very little about anything that matters. They see only what serves their purpose. They mistake age for simplicity, wisdom for hunger." Outside their protective circle, the Zethkari soldiers were in chaos. They could hear the dragon's purring and see its wings spread wide, but they could not see what was happening to their sacrifice. Some wanted to attack, others wanted to retreat, and all were confused by the creature's behavior. "This is not normal," Elder Korth said, his scientific mind working to understand what he was witnessing. "The worm has never behaved this way before. Something is different about this human." "The human is nothing special," Vextel snarled, but his voice carried doubt. "It is weak and broken, barely worth the effort to kill." Meanwhile, Dr. Roberts and the other human prisoners had been watching from their cage. They could see the dragon's protective stance and hear its contented purring, but they could not understand what was happening. "Something's wrong," Dr. Roberts said to the others. "Dragons don't act like this. They're supposed to be mindless predators." "Maybe Lucy's different somehow," suggested Maria Santos, one of the other prisoners. "She's always been special. Even here in this terrible place, she never stopped being kind to others." Back within the dragon's protective circle, Lucy was learning things that would change everything. The creature told her about the ancient guardians, beings of immense power and wisdom who had watched over the galaxy for millions of years. Most had moved on to higher planes of existence, but a few remained to observe and guide. Your species shows promise, the dragon explained. You have the capacity for great kindness even in the face of cruelty. This is rare among the younger races, but the aliens are stronger than us, Lucy said. They have better weapons and ships. They think we're nothing but animals. Strength is not measured in weapons or technology, small one. True strength comes from the heart, from the choice to show mercy when none has been shown to you. This is why I have waited for humanity to find the stars. The dragon's massive head moved closer to Lucy, and she felt no fear, only warmth and safety. But you are still young and your people are still learning. The choice of what comes next will be yours to make when you are ready. Lucy reached out with her newly healed hand and touched the dragon's snout. The scales were warm and smooth, like polished stone that had been sitting in sunlight. What choice? Whether humanity will become the guardians this galaxy needs, or whether they will follow the path of the Cold Ones and others like them. The path of cruelty and conquest. Outside, the Zethkari soldiers were growing more agitated. It had been over an hour since the dragon had surrounded the human, and nothing was happening as they expected. Some of the guards were beginning to whisper about old stories, legends they had dismissed as children's tales. The ancient texts speak of the Wyram's intelligence, Elder Korth said quietly. They say it was here before the first colony, before any of our people came to this world. What if we have misunderstood its nature? Vextel's scales darkened with anger. Superstitious nonsense, it is an animal, nothing more. It will eventually consume the human, and we will return to our work. But deep in space, human ships were already moving towards Zarian Prime. Captain Jake Morrison had been tracking the missing colonists for weeks, and his sensors had finally located the Zethkari mining operation. What he would find there would change the course of galactic history. The dragon sensed the approaching ships and shared this knowledge with Lucy. Your people come for you. Soon the Cold Ones will learn that they have made a grave error in judgment. Lucy smiled for the first time in months. Will you help them? I will help you all, little guardian. But first, you must help me teach the galaxy a lesson about the true nature of strength. The first sign of the human rescue fleet was a bright flash across the desert sky. Captain Jake Morrison's ship, the Star Runner, dropped out of hyperspace with 3 other vessels, their engines glowing blue against the orange sunset. The sudden appearance of the human ships sent the Zethkari camp into immediate panic. "Alert! Alert!" shouted the communications officer, his scales turning pale with fear. Human military vessels approaching from the north. They are armed and demanding our surrender. Commander Vextel's confidence cracked for the first time since the ordeal began. His recording device fell forgotten from his claws as he watched. The approaching ships. Impossible. The humans have no fleet capable of reaching this sector. Their technology is primitive at best. But the ships were real, and they were closing fast. The lead vessel broadcast a message that echoed across the canyon in multiple languages, including the Zethkari tongue. This is Captain Jake Morrison. Of the Human Colonial Defense Force, we know you are holding our people prisoner. Release them immediately or face the consequences. Elder Korth stepped closer to Vextel, his old eyes wide with concern. Commander, perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans have found us despite our jamming signals. Their capabilities may be greater than we assumed. Silence. Vextel snarled, but his voice carried fear now instead of confidence. They are still just humans, ready the defense platforms. Within the dragon's protective circle, Lucy felt the creature's amusement as it watched the alien soldiers scramble to prepare their weapons. The dragon's ancient mind was connected to hers, and she could sense its vast intelligence processing. The situation. They are afraid, the dragon said in her mind. The Cold Ones have never faced opposition from your kind. They believe themselves safe in their cruelty. Will the humans win? Lucy asked, though she already knew the answer from the dragon's calm confidence. Your people are resourceful, little one. But this battle will be won not with weapons, but with understanding. Watch and learn. The dragon's massive wings shifted slightly, giving Lucy a view of the chaos in the alien camp. The Zethkari soldiers were running between defensive positions, their movements panicked and uncoordinated. Their arrogance had been replaced by confusion and fear. Captain Morrison's voice crackled over the communication system again. Zethkari forces, we are prepared to use force if necessary. You have 30 seconds to begin releasing our people. Never. Vextal screamed back. The humans are our prisoners by right of conquest. You have no authority here. Then we'll make our own authority, Morrison replied calmly. The human ships opened fire, but not with the destructive weapons the Zethkari expected. Instead, they used precision strikes that disabled the alien defense platforms without causing casualties. The alien soldiers watched in amazement as their weapons were surgically removed from the equation. How are they doing this? Demanded one of the guards. Their targeting systems should not be this advanced. Dr. Roberts, still imprisoned in the cage with the other humans, smiled grimly as he watched the battle. They're not using standard targeting. Someone's been upgrading our technology. From her position next to the dragon, Lucy could see things the others missed. The dragon's eyes were glowing brighter, and she realized it was somehow helping guide the human weapons. The ancient creature was ensuring that the battle would end with minimal bloodshed. You're helping them, she said with wonder. I am helping justice, the dragon replied. The cold ones chose to be cruel. Now they must learn that cruelty has consequences. As the human ships landed near the prison compound, Admiral Helen Cross emerged from the lead vessel. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Behind her came a team of Marines, their weapons ready, but not raised in threat. I am Admiral Cross, she announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to command. I'm here to collect our people and discuss the terms of your surrender. Vextal's scales had turned almost black with rage and fear. Surrender? We are the Zethkari Empire? We do not surrender to inferior species. Your defense platforms are gone, Cross replied calmly. Your communications are jammed. Your mining equipment is disabled. What exactly makes you think you're in a position to negotiate? It was then that Elder Korth made a discovery that changed everything. While the other soldiers had been focused on the human attack, he had been studying the ancient texts stored in the camp's computer systems. What he found made his blood run cold. Commander, he said urgently, his voice shaking, you need to see this. The old prophecies, the ones we thought were just stories. Not now, old fool, Vextal snapped. Can't you see we're under attack? But Elder Korth continued, his scientific mind racing to understand the implications. The texts speak of the small ones who would awaken the sleeping guardians. They describe a time when the ancient powers would choose new protectors for the galaxy. Fairy tales. Commander, look at the worm. Look at what it has done. The creature has not moved from its protective position around the human child. It has been there for hours, showing behavior that contradicts everything we know about its species. For the first time, Vextal really looked at the dragon. The massive creature remained curled around the altar, its wings spread wide, its golden eyes watching the proceedings with obvious intelligence. There was something in those ancient eyes that made the commander's confidence waver. Admiral Cross approached the dragon slowly, her hands visible and empty. She had seen many strange things in her career, but nothing quite like this. I'm here. For the girl, she called out. We mean no harm to you or anyone else. The dragon's great head turned toward her, and Cross felt the weight of its gaze. When it spoke, its voice reached not just her mind, but the minds of everyone present, human and alien alike. Admiral of the Star Children, the dragon said, its mental voice carrying the weight of eons. You have come for the little guardian? This is good. But first you must understand what has happened here. The assembled crowd fell silent. Even the Zethkari soldiers stopped their preparations to listen to words that seemed to come from the very air around them. I am Kithara, last of the Crimson Guardians. I have watched over this world for 10,000 of your years, waiting for the time when a worthy species would prove itself capable of inheriting the greater galaxy. Elder Korth felt his legs give out beneath him. The name Kithara was in the oldest texts, the ones that spoke of gods and guardians from the dawn of galactic civilization. Impossible, he whispered. The guardians are myths. We are as real as the stars themselves, Kithara continued. We tested many species over the millennia. The Zethkari failed our tests long ago when they chose conquest over cooperation. Others have failed similarly. Vextal's arrogance crumbled as the true weight of his situation became clear. You dote? You're saying the human is special? Not special. In the way you understand, the dragon replied. But your species has shown something the others have not? When faced with cruelty, you choose compassion. When offered power, you question whether you deserve it. This small one, broken and abandoned, showed kindness to a creature that could have destroyed her. Lucy stood up within the dragon's protective circle, her body now fully healed. She looked out at the assembled crowd of humans and aliens, all watching her with expressions of amazement and confusion. The choice is before you now, Kithara said, addressing all present. Humanity has proven itself worthy of consideration as the galaxy's next guardians. But they must choose this path themselves, and they must prove they can wield such responsibility. Wisely, Admiral Cross stepped forward, her mind racing to understand the implications. What exactly are you offering us? Knowledge, technology, the wisdom of ages, but also the responsibility to guide and protect all species in this galaxy, even those who have shown you cruelty. The dragon's golden eyes fixed on Vextal, including the cold ones who sought to sacrifice an innocent child to save themselves from inconvenience. Lucy walked to the edge of the dragon's protective circle and looked out at the Zethkari commander. Despite everything he had done to her, despite the pain and fear he had caused, she felt something unexpected in her heart. He was scared, she said quietly. They all were. Fear makes people do terrible things sometimes. The dragon's purr rumbled through the canyon. And this, Star Children, is why your species may be ready for what comes next. The news of what happened on Zarian Prime spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within hours, ships from dozens of different species were heading toward the desert planet. The Galactic Council, which had ignored humanity for decades, suddenly found itself in emergency session. Ambassador Lisa Chun arrived on the second wave of human ships, her diplomatic training put to the ultimate test. She had negotiated trade deals and border disputes before, but nothing had prepared her for a situation where an ancient dragon was offering to make humanity the guardians of the galaxy. This is unprecedented, she said to Admiral Cross as they stood outside the dragon's protective circle. The Council has never dealt with anything like this. Half the member species don't even believe the guardians ever existed. Well, they're about to get an education, Cross replied, watching as Lucy sat peacefully next to the massive dragon. The little girl looked so small compared to Kithara, but there was something in her posture that spoke of newfound confidence and purpose. The Zethkari camp had become a strange gathering place. Human soldiers worked alongside confused alien guards to maintain order as more ships arrived. Elder Korth had spent the past day studying every ancient text he could find, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was witnessing. The implications are staggering, he told Dr. Roberts, who had finally been released from his cage. If the Guardians are real, if they truly did guide the early development of galactic civilization, then everything we thought we knew about history is wrong. Dr. Roberts nodded, his medical training focused on Lucy's remarkable recovery. Her injuries were severe. Broken bones, infected wounds, malnutrition. Now she's healthier than most children her age. Whatever that dragon did, it's beyond our current understanding of biology. General Vexver arrived with the third wave of Zethkari reinforcements, his military mind seeing opportunity where others saw crisis. Unlike Vextal's crude arrogance, Vexver was intelligent and dangerous. He studied the situation carefully before making his move. This dragon, this guardian, it represents power beyond anything in our current arsenal, he said to his staff officers. If we could capture it, study it, we could become the dominant force in the galaxy. His aide, a younger officer named Kekstar, looked nervous. Sir, the creature appears to be protecting the human child. Any attack might harm her. Acceptable losses, Dexter replied coldly. One human child is a small price to pay for such knowledge. Within the dragon's circle, Kithara sensed the general's intentions. The ancient creature's golden eyes flickered with annoyance, but it chose to focus on more important matters. Lucy sat beside its massive head, her small hand resting on its snout as they continued their mental conversation. You said I have to make a choice, Lucy said, but I'm just a kid. How can I decide something so important for all of humanity? Age is not the same as wisdom, little guardian, Kithara replied. You have seen cruelty and chosen kindness. You have faced death and shown mercy to those who would have killed you. These choices reveal the content of your heart. But what if humans aren't ready? What if we become like the Zethkari, using power to hurt others? The dragon's purr rumbled through the stone beneath them. That is exactly why you may be ready. The species that worry about their worthiness are often the ones most deserving of trust. Ambassador Shun approached the dragon's circle, her diplomatic protocols completely inadequate for the situation. Kithara, may I speak with you? I represent the United Human Colonies, and we need to understand what you're offering us. The dragon's great head turned toward her, ancient eyes studying the diplomat with interest. Speak, daughter of stars. The power you're talking about, the responsibility to guide other species, it's beyond anything humanity has ever faced. We're still learning how to govern ourselves, let alone others. Good, Kithara said simply. Those who seek power are rarely worthy of it. Those who fear it often are. Shun felt the weight of countless worlds in that simple statement. What would this guardianship entail? What would be expected of us? To protect the weak, to guide the lost, to stand against those who would use strength for cruelty rather than justice, to make the hard choices that preserve life and promote understanding between species. And if we're not ready, if we fail, then you will have failed honestly, which is better than not trying at all. But I do not believe you will fail, Lisa-chan. Your species has already shown me what I needed to see. The dragon's gaze shifted to include all the humans present. You came here not for conquest, but to rescue your own. You disabled your enemy's weapons without killing them. Even now, your soldiers work alongside their former captors to maintain peace. These are not the actions of a species destined for tyranny. General Dexter had been listening to the conversation through hidden surveillance devices. He decided the time for subtlety had passed. His ships moved into attack position, weapons charging for a coordinated strike on the dragon. Sir, Kekstar said urgently, the humans will certainly retaliate if we attack. Let them try, Dexter replied. Our weapons are designed to penetrate even the thickest armor. If we can disable or kill the dragon, we can claim its body for study. The humans lack the firepower to stop us. But Dexter had made the same mistake as Vextal. He underestimated both humanity and the dragon. Kithara sensed the attack coming long before the weapons fired, and its response was swift and devastating. The dragon's wings spread wide, and energy crackled between the membranes. When the Zethkari weapons fired, their beams simply stopped. In midair, absorbed by a barrier of pure force. Then Kithara retaliated. The counterattack was not violent, but it was overwhelming. The dragon's power reached out and simply shut down every piece of Zethkari technology in the area. Ships fell from the sky, landing hard but safely. Weapons stopped working. Even the lights went out. By the ancient stars, Elder Korth whispered, watching as his people's technological superiority vanished in an instant. We are nothing compared. To this, Lucy felt the dragon's power flowing around her, vast and ancient but carefully controlled. Despite its overwhelming strength, Kithara had chosen not to kill anyone. The ships were disabled but intact, the crews shaken but unharmed. This is why power must be earned, the dragon said to all present, its mental voice carrying disappointment. It is not enough to be strong, one must also be wise. General Vexfer found himself sitting in a powerless ship, his grand plans reduced to ash. Around him, his soldiers struggled to understand how their advanced weapons had become useless. Metal. "We attacked a god," one of them whispered. "We actually attacked one of the ancient guardians." Admiral Cross stepped forward, her respect for the dragon's restraint evident in her voice. "You could have destroyed them all. Why didn't you?" "Because destruction is easy, Admiral Cross. Building something better is hard. The Zethkari acted from fear and greed, but they are not beyond redemption. Even General Vexfer might learn wisdom, given time and proper guidance." Lucy stood up, her decision finally clear in her mind. She looked out at the assembled crowd of humans and aliens, all watching her with expressions ranging from hope to fear to amazement. "I think I know what choice to make," she said, her young voice carrying across the silent canyon. "But I need to ask you something first, Cathara. If humans become guardians, what happens to species like the Zethkari? Do we rule over them? You guide them, little one? You protect them from themselves and others. You help them grow and learn. Rule is for tyrants. Guardians serve." Lucy nodded, understanding flooding through her. She looked at Vextel, still standing among his confused soldiers, then at the human crews working to help repair the disabled alien ships. "Then I choose to accept," she said simply. "But not just for humans. I choose for everyone to have the chance to be better than they were before." The dragon's purr filled the canyon with warm, approving sound. "Then let the new age begin." 6 months after Lucy's choice, the galaxy was a very different place. The little girl who had been thrown away as worthless now stood in the great assembly hall of the Galactic Council, speaking to representatives from hundreds of worlds. She wore a simple blue dress, and beside her stood Cathara in a smaller form, the dragon having learned to shrink itself to fit in confined spaces. "The important thing to remember," Lucy said to the assembled delegates, "is that being a guardian doesn't mean being a ruler. It means helping others when they need help, and sometimes helping them see when they're making mistakes." The Zethkari delegation sat in the front row, their scales a mixture of colors that showed their complex emotions. Elder Korth had become their chief representative, his scientific mind having accepted the new reality faster than most of his people. Commander Vextal sat beside him, his once proud demeanor replaced by something approaching humility. "The human child speaks wisdom beyond her years," said Ambassador Trixville from the Crystal Confederacy. "But many of our people still struggle to understand how such a young species could be granted such responsibility." Dr. Roberts, now serving as Lucy's advisor and guardian, stepped forward. "Perhaps that's the point. Humans are young enough to still believe that things can get better. We haven't had time to become cynical about the possibility of change." The changes had been remarkable to witness. Human ships now carried advanced technology gifted by Cathara, but they used it primarily for exploration and rescue missions. When the bacterial plague hit the Outer Rim worlds, human medical teams had been first to respond, their dragon-enhanced knowledge helping to save millions of lives across 17 different species. Admiral Cross, now bearing the title of Guardian, Fleet Commander, managed the growing network of human vessels that served as peacekeepers and aid workers throughout known space. "We've established Guardian stations in 43 systems," she reported to the assembly. Each one staffed by mixed crews of humans and local species, working together to solve problems before they become wars. Captain Morrison, whose rescue mission had started everything, now commanded the Guardian Academy on Luna. Young humans and aliens learned together how to mediate disputes, provide disaster relief, and protect the innocent. The curriculum focused as much on ethics and understanding as it did on technology and tactics. "The most important lesson we teach," Morrison explained to visiting council members, "is that strength is only valuable when it's used to help others grow stronger too." But not everyone in the galaxy was pleased with the changes. In the shadowy corners of space, the hegemony of pure blood gathered strength. They were a coalition of species who believed that power should belong only to the strong, and they saw humanity's guardianship as an insult to the natural order. General Lexver had escaped custody during the chaos, following Kithara's demonstration of power. He now served as the hegemony's military commander, his hatred of humans and their dragon ally burning brighter than ever. "They make us weak," he told his followers in a secret base hidden in an asteroid field. "The humans preach compassion and understanding, but these things are chains that bind the strong to serve the weak. We must break these chains before they strangle the galaxy." The hegemony had been testing Guardian responses, staging small attacks and conflicts to probe for weaknesses. What they found frustrated them. Human Guardian ships responded to every threat, but they always tried negotiation first. Even when forced to fight, they used minimal force and offered mercy to defeated enemies. "It is infuriating," complained war leader Vashton of the Iron Claw Alliance. "How do you defeat an enemy that will not kill you even when you try to kill them?" "You find their weakness," Vexfer replied. "And their weakness is obvious. They care too much about others. We take hostages, threaten innocents, force them to choose between their principles and the lives they claim to protect." Back on Earth, Lucy was visiting her old school for the first time since becoming a Guardian. The children gathered around her and Kithara with wonder and excitement, asking endless questions about space travel and alien worlds. "Is it scary being in charge of the whole galaxy?" asked 8-year-old Tommy Chun, Ambassador Chun's nephew. "I'm not in charge," Lucy said with a smile. "Nobody is really, that's the whole point. Everyone gets to make their own choices about how to live. Guardians just try to make sure those choices don't hurt other people." "But what if bad people try to hurt good people?" asked Sarah Williams, her eyes wide with concern. Lucy's expression grew more serious. "Then we stop them. But we try to help them understand why what they're doing is wrong too. Sometimes people do bad things because they're scared or because nobody ever taught them better." Kithara, resting in the school courtyard in a form no larger than a horse, rumbled approvingly. The dragon had become something of a celebrity among Earth's children, who seemed to have no fear of the ancient creature. "The little Guardians understand better than many adults," Kithara said, its mental voice warm with amusement. "Perhaps. Wisdom truly does come more easily to the young." Mrs. Hamilton, Lucy's old teacher, watched the interaction with amazement. "When you were my student, I always said you were special. But I never imagined anything like this. You taught me that people could choose to be kind even when the world was cruel," Lucy replied. "That lesson saved my life and changed the galaxy." The peaceful moment was interrupted by an urgent communication from Admiral Cross. The hegemony had finally made their move, launching simultaneous attacks on 3 Guardian stations. Worse, they had taken hostages, including civilian families from multiple species. "They're demanding we withdraw all Guardian forces from the Outer Rim sectors," Cross reported. "If we refuse, they'll execute the hostages." Lucy felt the familiar weight of impossible choices settling on her shoulders. Around her, the schoolchildren sensed the change in mood, their excited chatter fading to concerned whispers. "What do we do?" Dr. Roberts asked quietly. Lucy closed her eyes and reached out with her mind to touch the vast network of Guardian forces across the galaxy. Thousands of humans and aliens working together, all connected by their shared commitment to protecting others. She could feel their resolve, their willingness to sacrifice themselves if necessary to save the innocent. "We do what Guardians do," she said finally. "We save everyone." The rescue operation that followed became legendary throughout the galaxy. Guardian forces coordinated across multiple star systems, using their enhanced technology and careful planning to strike all hegemony positions simultaneously. But what made the mission truly remarkable was that they managed to save every single hostage while capturing most of the terrorists alive. General Vexfer found himself in custody once again, this time facing Lucy in a secure facility. The once proud military leader looked older, his scales dulled by defeat and confusion. "Why?" he asked. "Why didn't you just destroy us? You had the power. You could have ended this threat permanently." Lucy sat across from him, her young face serious but not unkind. "Because destroying you wouldn't have solved anything. There would just be other people, other groups, who thought the same way you do. But if you can learn to think differently, maybe you can help teach others too. You expect me to become one of your guardians? Vexvarus carried disbelief. I expect you to become better than you were, Lucy replied simply. What you do with that chance is up to you. Years passed. The galaxy slowly learned to live in peace, with conflicts resolved through dialogue and cooperation rather than violence. The Guardian network grew, but so did the number of species capable of solving their own problems without outside help. Lucy grew older, but she never lost the compassion that had first impressed Kithara. She traveled from world to world teaching others how to be guardians of their own communities and planets. On her 18th birthday, she stood once again in the canyon where it all began. Kithara was there in full size, its crimson scales glowing in the desert sunset. Elder Korth and even Vextal had come to witness the ceremony, the former commander now serving as a guardian instructor for young Zethkari. You have kept your promise, little guardian, Kithara said. Humanity has proven itself worthy of the trust placed in them. And now, Lucy asked, now you no longer need me to guide you? The galaxy has learned to guard itself, with humanity. As its teachers and protectors, my work here is done. As the dragon spoke, similar ceremonies were taking place across the galaxy. Ancient guardians who had slept for millennia began to stir, sensing that the time of waiting was finally over. The younger races had proven themselves ready to inherit the stars. Lucy watched as Kithara spread its great wings, preparing for a journey to dimensions beyond physical space. But before the dragon departed, it had one final gift. The greatest. Guardian is one who makes guardians of others, Kithara said. Remember that, and the galaxy will never lack for protectors. As the ancient dragon disappeared into light and stardust, Lucy felt not sadness, but hope. Around her, representatives from 100 worlds stood together in friendship and mutual respect. The galaxy had learned to choose compassion over cruelty, understanding over ignorance, unity over division. The girl who had been sacrificed as worthless had become the teacher who showed the galaxy its own worth.